Hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we kick off the first in a series of webinars on our Smaato Publisher platform, also known as SPX. Welcome to More Control, More Revenue, Smaato SPX Test Drive. I'm Carrie Pittman, Senior Marketing Manager here at Smaato, and today's webinar is a high-level overview of SPX, a free, full-scale ad server presented to you by the very folks who built the platform. In this webinar, we'll educate the market and educate you on our platform's capabilities. Now for some quick housekeeping before we get started. All attendees are muted. We encourage you to enter any questions you have during the presentation into the questions window, and we'll reserve a few minutes at the end of this 30-minute session to answer as many questions as we can. Please include your email address along with your question in case we don't get to it, and we'll be glad to email you a response. We'll also be sending out the presentation slides to everyone who registered. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website, smaato.com. We'll send you the link to the recording. And last but not least, be sure to stick around after the webinar to fill out a brief survey that will help us develop future webinars. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our first presenter, Ajit Palpanu.
Thanks, Carrie. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. With a quick, brief intro in regard to Smaato's product team, myself, Ajit Palpanu. We also have Garrett McGrath, as well as Andrew Gilligan, who are both on the product team and some of the key folks that have developed this platform. Looking forward to sharing the details, but also hearing your questions. As they come up, please put them in the chat window, as Carrie mentioned. Great. So what do we mean when we say more control, more revenue, and how does that kind of tie back to our story here at Smaato with our Smaato's publisher platform, which is SPX? First and foremost, just a little bit of background. What do we do as a company, and I think how it all comes together, if you will. I'm sure everyone here in the audience might have heard the word real-time bidding exchanges, might have heard the word demand side and supply side. Demand meaning this is the advertisers that are coming in and buying advertisements across a breadth of publishers, if you will. The way they buy that advertising is multiple different ways. One of those happens to be in a programmatic fashion on a real-time bidding exchange. And then obviously, supply side which is the content creators, the publishers, the app developers. At Smaato, we have somewhere around 80,000 plus publishers that are connected into our ecosystem. And this is the area, this is the audience we're here to address today, is to help them understand what have we rolled out that helps them take better control of their inventory. Great. So before going into any of those details, let's also talk about how big is this platform, how big is this ecosystem inside Smaato. First and foremost, it's our exchange, which is Smaato's RTB, Global Mobile RTB Ad Exchange, if you will. Short form is SMX. Inside the RTB exchange, obviously, we have somewhere in the ballpark of 150 billion plus monthly impressions that are coming in from our publishers, from app developers, if you will, as well. This given volume allows you to reach an audience somewhere in the ballpark of 720 million uniques. The folks that are buying across this audience are the demand side platforms as well as the ad networks, which essentially sits inside our remediation stack, as well as the RTB exchange, and that number is around 340 of those folks connected. Obviously, there's a lot of controls that a publisher needs to better monetize their inventory, and some of those controls are your ability to manage your floor price, your ability to target your inventory and put floor prices around that inventory, and then essentially optimize this across the board in order to get maximum possible eCPM for each one of those impressions. One of the key questions we have learned from our publishers is always they're looking for success. How do you define success? I think each one of us will have a different definition. Inside of our platform, we define success based on control, scale, and revenue. How do we do this? This is really, first and foremost, it starts with a lot of the controls. Second, it goes to your ability to monetize each one of those impressions and eventually reaching scale at a global level. And then obviously all of that has an impact on the revenue you end up generating as a publisher. Yep. Um, Before we go into the product and the details, I want to quickly touch upon something that we have learned and we keep on hearing about from a publisher in regards to control. And that control really is over a span of 200 milliseconds or so. This is the amount of time it takes for a transaction in a programmatic real-time bidding environment to happen. What we're calling here Smaato, this is the life of an impression. So imagine the life of an impression that's 200 milliseconds and your ability to control certain things inside that given impression. First and foremost, it's price. Second, it's the auction. And third is the decision logic. We, as a company, Smaato, have rolled out a platform called SPX, Smaato's publisher platform, which we will talk about starting from next slide onwards. That allows you as a publisher to take full control here. First and foremost, it's the price. It's the automated floor price that allows you to essentially come up with a pricing mechanism for millions, billions of impressions that you need to monetize on a daily basis in a programmatic fashion, pre-auction. The key here is pre-auction, not post-auction, not mid-auction. Second thing that happens is Smaato's Exchange. Smaato's Exchange allows you to access 340 plus demand partners. Out of those, 240 are programmatic, other 100 ad networks. And then finally, inside the ad server, your ability to make a decision. With that said, we'll go into the details, and I'll pass it on to Andrew Gilligan, who is one of the director of products on the team involved in the entire process.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. So we had a tremendous opportunity of being able to kind of think about what is the ideal version of an ad server for mobile publishers. We had a terrific ad exchange and a basic ad server previous, but with SPX we really wanted to re-envision what was possible to publishers trying to make the most possible revenue out of every impression. Some of the ideas that we came up with was really forcing competition between the different sales channels. You've got your direct ads, you've got your ad networks, you've got your ad exchange, and often these are in very segmented specific channels in your ad stack, and often these things don't get to compete for price. So a specific user may be requesting an ad, and you might choose to pass it off to a direct campaign for $2 CPM, when the ad exchange was actually really interested in that user and was willing to pay a $5 CPM. If that campaign was in no jeopardy of kind of reaching its goals, wouldn't it have been great to take that higher price instead of passing it off? And then in the same kind of way, wouldn't it be great if your ad networks really got to compete with the ad exchange? So if there are specific ad networks in your stack that have a high CPM, instead of just flooring the auction and going to your ad networks and leaving bids on the table, wouldn't it be great to try some of those networks? And if they are perhaps not 100% fill networks, that you attempt them, and then if they don't fill, you go on to the ad exchange. So a lot of what we worked on was creating the best possible auction for an SSP, an RTB, and an ad server. This universal kind of auction and selection process for all these things, and being able to do that on scale for a publisher. So you say, I want this to compete with this, and at these prices. And that's something that I think is different than any of the other platforms. So most other platforms at this point have some version of things like this, but we think our take on it was really unique. And the performance on this has been great. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, we want to make publishers revenue. So giving these controls to those publishers, we've seen tremendous increases in fill rates and eCPM from both the networks and the ad exchange, and then being able to really mix that with their direct sold campaigns. So we call that merging of all those different sales channels and competition dynamic demand, and that's how we're describing it. So Garrett is also with me today. Garrett is on the product team as well. Sorry, it looks like our slides got a little messed up on this. So we're going to be jumping into some of the interfaces and kind of what was our take on when we designed this. Garrett, feel free to kind of jump in when you want, but I'm going to hop in. I'm going to talk about, from our perspective, a publisher that is an app developer, if you've got mobile inventory, I think it's really interesting to know how your different sales channels are filling, where your revenue is coming from, how that is performing across your different apps. So we decided to take this on with a dashboard page inside our interface. So you come in and you get to see kind of like how is the market filling inside your environment. How is the networks performing? How is your direct performing? What's the revenue for these things? And providing some insights, like what do I need to look at today? What do I need to change? What's working well, and what should I try to reproduce?
So one quick comment on that, just to kind of echo what you were saying, Andrew. We'll talk a bit more about dynamic demand in a minute, but that's kind of the crux of or the centerpiece of the logic behind SPX and that decisioning logic. And we think it's pretty interesting to be able to come into a dashboard environment like this, and if you're using the ad server for any type of demand, from direct down to remnant, programmatic premium in between, RTB maybe one step below that, you get a full view into your entire business, your entire book of business from this dashboard.
And so some of the things that you'll see is like we're bringing your entire book of business into this platform. So you've got your direct orders, you've got the Smaato Ad Exchange, which is both the RTB and then the networks that we have on our side, which is I think over 340 plus at this point. And then we're also allowing for you to bring in your own network relationships. So when you see on this dashboard the Amobi, the HuntMads, the MobFox, and Visa, these are your network relationships. So you already have some. So you can bring them into the platform, enter your credentials. We'll pull reporting data, auto-optimize them, and make those compete with the marketplace. It doesn't really help you to make more money by having a waterfall setup that sends like impressions from this platform to this platform to this platform, because there's no intelligence between those, and you're going to have to be logging into all these different reporting interfaces and pulling reports and re-optimizing manually. We wanted everything in one place. We think this is adding value to you.
And just to be totally clear, I think you said it, but any of those network relationships that our publisher owns that you bring in are, of course, automatically included in this dynamic demand logic that we're talking about here. Yeah. The whole message, and we're probably going to just repeat ourselves a lot, is that it's completely integrated. Nothing is separate. There is no waterfall anymore.
Right. It's we think this is just a better way to run an auction. If my RTV sends a price that's higher than a direct sold campaign, and I'm willing to allow it to compete at that price and priority, why wouldn't I take it? If the ad network that doesn't have 100% fill, but specializes in retargeting, and when it does pay out, it pays a $2 CPM, why not try that first and then go to the auction? Most ad exchange and mediation SSP platforms, they've got an auction mechanic where they run the auction and then they just floor it at whatever the highest network is. But that's a lost opportunity, especially in mobile, where many of these networks are specializing in targeting carrier data and may have a really high CPM when they can take it, but may not take it 100% of the time. So yeah, again, dynamic demand is what we're calling this just super selection process inside the ad server that allows all of these things to compete at the same level, or whatever you control. So we've got exchange settings inside the exchange that says, hey, I want the ad exchange, and it's allowed to compete at priority 6, which is maybe where I run some of my sort of premium campaigns, but not the most premium. It compete at priority 6, but it needs to hit a $4 CPM. And so if something else at priority 6 is a $2 CPM, we're allowing that RTB to win that auction. So you don't want that to happen in every situation, but we think that it's a really compelling argument, and essentially the future of where private exchanges need to go. You're describing inventory and you're describing the price that the ad exchange needs to compete at that, and we're giving those controls to you as a publisher. Most other platforms obscure that. You can say, hey, this direct sold campaign can be preempted by the ad exchange at a certain price, but you're not saying, hey, ad exchange, I want you to compete on my female millennial users on my iOS app at a $4 CPM, and if not, then I want to give it to these other things. So we've really opened up those controls, and we think that's a pretty great thing to give. Do you want to spend a couple minutes running through the UI of the interface?
Yeah, I think we should. We're calling it a test drive. It's pretty hard to do from a webinar, but I'm sure folks would love to see it.
Sure. So I'm going to blow this screen up right here. Garrett, tell me that looks okay.
Not yet. I'm still seeing the presentation. There we go.
Is that big enough? Is it readable?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, cool. So this is a demo account. It's got fake data. Don't look into it too hard. So, I as a publisher, I come in here. I want to see, what's happening today. What's happening over time. I can break out my dashboard by, last week. I can see what's just happening today. I can say, I see a stacked graph. I can see what my revenue is. I can check out CPMs and find insights about like how things are performing and then what's being filled. As you see, we've got some fill rate information here. This is presuming that I actually have potentially another ad server in front of this that I'm using for display, and I want to pass it to that other ad server at some point. I can see my revenue breakdown on which sales channels are breaking out my different revenue and where my revenue is coming in per app, which I think is pretty great. You get to see, who's falling behind and who you need to invest in. As a publisher, when I sign up, I'm probably going to go in and I'm going to create my applications inside my inventory. This is a new concept for Smaato. Previously, we just had ad spaces, ad units for apps, but now we're creating a hierarchy. So you can go in, you can create your different applications, define how many different ad spaces, these different ad units that you want per application, select your sizes and your IAB categories, and a download URL. And this is pretty streamlined flow for creating your inventory and your applications. And then once you have those things, then you can start creating direct orders. You can this is similar to almost any other ad server out there. You can go in, you create an order. Inside your order, you can go and you can create line items. Line items can have, creatives. You've got priority. You've got, frequency capping, volume capping, targeting credentials. And you can, because we're mobile, there's very specific kind of targeting arrangements that you might have for your campaigns. So you've got direct. You've got your inventory set up. Now, the ad exchange. We decided to treat the ad exchange like another sales channel, which it is. And we wanted to give you very specific controls about how you do that. And what we did was the idea that as we move into more programmatic buying inside the industry, as deal IDs and private exchanges come up, and as publishers get smarter about packaging their inventory and saying, hey, these are my soccer fans during the World Cup, they're worth $5 CPM, I can even tell you which one's a Manchester United fan. That, as you package these things, you want to describe that inventory and you want to expose it with a price to the ad exchange or potentially a deal ID or choose who gets to buy it. And so in order to really be able to facilitate that, we thought it was essential to expose that in the UI, and it's basically like a line item setup for the ad exchange. So you can define what priority you want it to compete at, all the way down at 12 with your networks, or much higher if you want it with your ad exchange. You can set a $5 CPM for these things. You can add your block list for anything that you don't want to potentially win in the open auction on your inventory, and drill down on targeting. Be able to specify things that describe this inventory.
By the way, these could also easily be called exchange rules. We call them line items, and line item is a really common nomenclature in ad serving. But kind of getting your head around it at first, you could almost call this a set of rules about how does my inventory, how is it exposed in the auction, what's eligible, what's not, how do I control it. And when we were showing the line item creation screen a moment ago, you saw price and priority. Those are the two key drivers to how you control, or how you control dynamic demand, and how for direct networks, the exchange, any type of demand, this combination of price and priority is the tools that you use to control the dynamic demand selection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Something I want to add here, Andrew, Garrett as well, is more importantly for you as a publisher, uh, there's a lot of complex functionality and controls that we're showing you. It's actually even 2 points we want to make. First and foremost is this entire platform is free. There's no ad serving fees associated with this platform. That's one. Second is you literally can sign up for the platform in 3 steps, and you can turn this on where you're instantly generating some sort of revenue from the exchange. The exchange has around 240 or so demand sources that are plugged in globally, and you have the ability to start serving ads literally within 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's actually a great point that the product guys maybe get a little bit too into the details sometimes. It is a completely free product. We don't charge ad serving fees as noted, or technology fees or any of that. If you bring your own networks in, those relationships are yours. We don't take a piece of that, and we can even exclude those networks from our network stack if we happen to both work with the same folks.
Right. So if you want to bring your networks in, you can bring in your login credentials so we can pull revenue data and update those CPMs for those networks that we've set this up for. And then you can have multiple ad units from like essentially tags from those different networks, so you can measure CPMs for those differently and allow them to kind of compete in the network stack.
Yep.
So yeah, that's and we're going to be continually adding more network relationships as we do that. But our Smaato ad exchange does have ad networks and DSPs embedded in it, and it covers a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, just to be totally clear, I mean the exchange is a completely integrated RTB plus mediation layer. I mean we've got 240 some odd or 340 some odd demand sources, and that's a mixture of hundreds of DSPs and hundreds of networks.
Absolutely. So yeah, and finally off, we have reporting space, which again we'll continually be making improvements to this, so you can break out by whatever you need and be able to export CSVs, and it's a great discovery tool for figuring out kind of how are your apps doing, and there's integration options as well. So we support all the major SDKs, and then as well as our tag library for mobile web. So you can always find kind of what you need, and if you want to generate tags for kind of any of your different ad spaces, it's really easy to do so.
And a quick note about this integration page is of course always where it is, where you're seeing it now, but it's also part of the kind of simple sign-up wizard that you'll see if you come in and don't have an account and create a new one. It's as mentioned, 2 or 3 quick steps to actually set up an account, and of course it takes you directly to these integration options.
Absolutely. We definitely tried to make this as few clicks as possible for being able to set up your inventory, get ads running, and then begin to start trafficking your creatives.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like hyperbole, but you can literally be set up in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's true. Cool. So I think that's a pretty good quick walkthrough of our, what we're working with today on SPX. And again, the performance on this thing has impressed ourselves. You can theorize like what a new market model, and you can do the models and you can do the math, but actually seeing that live in the wild and seeing 2x the CPMs, 2x the fill rates for publishers, how the ad exchange competes on their inventory, that's impressive, and we've seen some really favorable feedback.
Yeah, I mean we have the added benefit and complication of kind of having 2 platforms at the moment. One exchange, by the way, but 2 platforms. And SPX was completely built ground up, brand new, and we get to compare that on a daily basis and an impression by impression and publisher by publisher basis. And we'll be publishing some findings in a white paper in a week or 2. But the bottom line is fill and eCPM are somewhere between 50 and 150% better for many of the publishers that we've done an apples-to-apples comparison from the old platform to the new one.
Cool. So I think we're at 10:25. This is probably a good opportunity to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I think I saw a couple come through.
Great. Yeah, we actually have quite a few questions here, so hopefully we'll get to as many as we can. First question is from Jason. He's asking, why is everything called apps when this can also be for mobile web? That's the question coming from Jason.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Jason. And I think that's a great reminder that what was this platform built? And we essentially, as a company, we have built this mobile-ready and mobile-first as a platform. However, yes, you can still send mobile web inventory, and I think some of those updates are going to follow, where we will essentially the nomenclature will reflect that as well. But as of today, yes, you as a publisher can send us mobile web as well as mobile app inventory directly into the platform and essentially monetize that inventory.
And by the way, when you're setting up an app or a property, maybe is a good way to put it, all of the various operating systems are available, but also mobile web is as well. So on the far right of that screen right there. So absolutely, the platform handles mobile web. Calling things an app in the UI, it's just sort of a something we had. It's a decision we had to make how to call things one versus another. But I think in the future, when you've actually set up a mobile website, the going forward view of that in the UI will indicate that.
Okay, great. We've got some more questions. One from Andrea. Andrea's asking, she's got a few questions actually. How do you compare to other similar platforms, MoPub, AdMob mediation? The second part of this question is what sets you apart? For which ad networks do you offer auto import of eCPM values? Kind of a three-part question there.
Yep. Great question. So how do we set ourselves apart from any of the other platforms? I think first and foremost, this is a platform we built within the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. With a couple of things in mind. First and foremost, real-time advertising. Your ability to integrate and essentially operate with RTB being one of the demand sources, but not the only demand source. You have direct, you have indirect, which includes programmatic RTB, as well as network mediation, and having a decisioning logic that's within the ad server, not outside the ad server, within the ad server, that allows you as a publisher to generate the highest possible eCPM across all different line items. They could be direct, programmatic, or it could be even as simple as a value of a house ad. And you can have them all compete and allow the system to make a decision based on a pricing and eCPM. The third piece of this is also how do we kind of set ourselves apart. As well as how some of the networks that you're asking for that are already integrated. So there's a long list of those networks, and I think total networks that are integrated in our system is somewhere in the ballpark of 100. And we built the entire platform, and we're happy to kind of follow up if Andrea is able to share her email address. We'll give her a specific list of the networks that you essentially have them integrated. But first and foremost, we started with something in mind, which is what helps the publisher take better control and essentially does not cost the publisher from bringing in additional competition. And with that in mind, we have integrated all of our networks that are already inside our remediation layer. You as a publisher have the ability to exclude the ones you have direct relationships with and not pay any mediation fees for those ad networks. Why is that important? Because we want to promote competition. We do not want a publisher to not include certain networks because they essentially will end up paying certain fees and operate in a method where the decision happens within the product with any other additional fees not being factored in for that decisioning in order for them to monetize that impression.
And as far as the question regarding technically how do we integrate them, with 100 of them already connected, and almost all, well, not almost all of them, the majority of those are API connected. So if you have a relationship with a network, it's a pretty good chance we also do as well. So who can we auto pull revenue for and include that in your reporting and include the network demand in dynamic demand? Pretty much everyone. And if it's not included in that list, we'll add it for you.
All right, we probably have time just for one quick question. Andrea is also asking, how do you connect to these sources? Integration is the question, I think, here.
So connecting to the platform can be done through ad tags, SDKs, or an API connection. We have a full range of SDKs, of course. We have a very flexible ad tag, and then, of course, we can do server-to-server ad calls via an API.
Great. So that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much for your questions, and apologies we couldn't get to everyone. But please do include your email address in the chat window with the question if you would like a response from us. We'll be happy to do that. Also, be sure to fill out the brief survey once the webinar ends. And again, thanks for attending. We hope you found this webinar valuable. We'll send you the slide deck and a link to the recording. And be sure to join us for our next webinar in the very near future. Keep you posted on that. And goodbye, everyone, and look out for the survey.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.